Hello, this is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. I'm speaking to you on behalf of Brit-Am, the Hebrew nations. We are now going to discuss our contribution, the contribution of our organization, Brit-Am Hebrew Nations, to the study of the subject of the Lost 10 Tribes from the Jewish point of view, from the point of view of Jewish sources. And we have done quite a bit on this. We have proven, we have opened up a whole new field of studies on this subject concerning the Lost 10 Tribes being amongst Western peoples. We've opened up a whole new vista. We have shown how Jewish sources show that the Lost 10 Tribes were to be found in the West, and how the Rabbinical commentaries on the Bible and concerning the Bible prove or affirm the understanding of the Hebrew Bible as indicating that the Lost 10 Tribes in the end times will be in Western areas. And not only that, but also Rabbinical sources and commentaries have analyzed the different characteristics of the different tribes, especially those of Ephraim and Manasseh, of the major tribes of Joseph, but also of the other tribes, and we have shown how these apply to Western nations, especially to Britain and offshoots of Britain, and to the USA, North America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and other related places, and also other nations in Western Europe, amongst whom we find the Lost 10 Tribes as concentrated bodies of people. And in addition to these rabbinical and biblical sources, we also have opened up new avenues of study, shared new insights, additional information concerning the Lost 10 Tribes being in those areas, from a linguistic point of view, from the point of view of mythology, of archaeological findings, of ancient historical records, and numerous fields. We have contributed a great deal, and we have shown how not only have we brought up new information, we have shown how all this information fits together as one comprehensive whole, each different point supplementing and complementing the other. And this is what we have done. This is what we, God willing, we will continue to do, though we are struggling at times to do it. But this is how the One Providence wants it. The moment we are doing as well as we can, and God willing, we will continue to do so. We received a letter from someone known as Mark. He sent us a letter. He quoted from a Wikipedia article concerning British Israelism, and in this article, if you can look it up on the web about British Israelism in Wikipedia, you will find a mention of Brit-Am. Brit-Am is mentioned in one or two sentences. And then it goes on to Jewish sources, and it gives the impression there's a whole field of different school of thought amongst the Jews, saying Lost 10 Tribes amongst Western peoples. And this is simply not so. It is not so. We, Brit-Am Hebrew Nations, are the ones who show how rabbinical sources and biblical passages prove the Lost 10 Tribes to be amongst Western peoples. But apart from us, there isn't anyone. And we'll explain. We're not boasting, we're not making empty claims. Just want to clarify the situation, because it's worth knowing. It's worth knowing, and if it sounds far-fetched, you disagree with us, it's quite easy to check it out. These are things which are open out there, and they can be affirmed one way or the other. It's worth knowing. It's worth knowing because the bottom line is that this is the truth, that the Lost 10 Tribes are in our time to be found amongst Western peoples. What exact percentage they comprise of these peoples, how many of them will return, and all kinds of implications. That is another study, another question. But that is where they are. That is where they are to be found, according to the Bible, and also according to rabbinical sources and according to secular evidence. Now that's the bottom line. Once you accept the bottom line, it doesn't really matter where the evidence comes from and who gave the evidence and so on. But from that point of view, from the point of view of the truth, of the absolute truth, that no longer matters where the evidence came from. But in order to improve the evidence, in order to find more evidence, to increase it, to strengthen it, you should go along the tracks that have already been passed and which have proven themselves. In order to conserve energy and to focus effort in the right direction, we need to know these things. We need to know where the truth lies and how the truth has been obtained up until now, and how it is liable or most likely to be obtained, adduced in the future. And we would also like to point out that our group, Brit-Am Hebrew Nations, we deserve more recognition than we receive. We need to be appreciated more. Sometimes it feels as if everything is against us, everything and everybody. Google is the best or the most popular search engine on the web. 80% of the market for search engines uses Google. Google gets 80% of the market, and for the last year or so Google ignores us. We are not there. We used to be on the front page for about 20 different key names, such as Lost Tribes of Israel, Tribe of Dan, Tribe of Asher, Hebrew physical types and so on. We used to be up there on the front page, usually at the top of the page, or close to the top of the page. And we still are. If you look at Yahoo, if you look at any of the other search engines, we still are there. We are there for everyone except for Google. For Google, we're not on the front page, not on the second page, not on the third page, not on the fourth page, not on the fifth page, not on the 10th page. We don't exist. And we tried contacting people with Google, and they told us there was no problem. They could see no problem with our website, and they had no explanation for it. But nevertheless, they were also unable to rectify the situation. Just one of those things that they couldn't explain or refused to explain, or the people we spoke to who were unauthorized to tell us or did not know. Doesn't matter. This is a reality. This is just one thing, and one thing amongst many. Ephraimite groups come to Israel and so on. They give speeches and they invite all kinds of rabbis, all kinds of important people to speak about the lost in tribes. And they have a bar. They don't want to invite us. They don't invite us because we are I don't know. They just don't like us. A lot of people don't like us, and that is just one thing. They have a policy. The word has gone out to blackball Brit-Am, and a lot of things work against us. A lot of things also work for us. It's not all good and bad. It's not all good. It's not all bad. It's not all negative. There are a lot of positive things going for us. We have a lot of things in our favour, and people are jealous of us, or people are afraid of us. I don't know why. People who are uneasy about the intensity and the truth that we have, and they try and put a stop to us. And we have. This is a reality. This is a reality that we live with, and this is also affects our attitude. The attitude that we need. We need a defensive and aggressive type of attitude in order to survive. We need to be combative because they're fighting against us, so we need to have a combative attitude in order to keep our heads above water, as if to say. Also, there's no group is there supporting us. All the other groups can receive money. They have someone in their back, and no group, no fund, and no special interest is supporting us. We receive our funds, and we struggle to get by. The money we receive is from selling our publications or from people who send in individual offerings and donations. And there aren't that many of them because we don't get out there to that many people, but what there are do come through to us and that gives us a modest income, which is not sufficient for our needs, not sufficient for the needs of Brit-Am. But it keeps us going, and God willing, it will increase. And this is what we're up against. It also often causes pressures, and it causes all kinds of problems, and it impedes our progress and impedes our ability to function. So these things also need to be taken into consideration. We are hated by people who hate Jews. Anti-Semites hate us because we are associated with Jews. Academics link us to British Israel, and fringe groups and discriminate against us. We might send something out to an academic discussion group on the web. And sometimes they might relate to us, sometimes they might not. We've had cases where we've written things about lost in tribes. They're sending us posts back. People send us posts in reply defending evolution, as if we said anything about evolution. As if one thing is connected to the other. But in their mind, it's all one. It's all one It's all one thing. If you wanted to promote something which is what the Bible says, then then you have to do it all the way. Even though the two fields are not necessarily connected, or they don't have to be connected. The media usually ignores us, but it will give publicity to any other person who comes along with an idea about the lost ten tribes, even though it is much more far-fetched than ours, and it hasn't got the evidence we have, and it's not as sound as ours. But it might be more sensational, it might be more colourful, it might make better copy, it might be more popular, and for that reason we are discriminated against. And Christians don't like us because they seem to suspect us of having secret designs to convert all of them to Judaism or to undermine Christianity, and that is not so, definitely not so. We've had, especially that it's not so, we go out of our way not to offend Christian sensibilities, but nevertheless we are treated as if we were doing so. Here and there some Jews also suspect us of having Christian sympathies. Not very many, but it happens. It has happened here and there. Why? Because we say that the lost ten tribes are amongst Christian peoples, amongst peoples who at the present time are Christians, and also people, we say the lost ten tribes are amongst peoples who amongst whom we do find anti-Semites, and at times have been against the state of Israel, and have been taken positions that are antithetical to the Jewish cause, and for that reason certain Jews are reserved about us, but on the whole we present our case, and we managed to obtain a hearing, and we keep going. Nevertheless, it's not always easy. It's not always easy, and we sometimes have the feeling that from all directions we are being hedged in. So this should be taken into consideration. Getting back to what we're talking about, this article on the web, British Israelism on Wikipedia. It's an interesting article, gives a general history of British Israelism, and then it says that many Jews reject two-house theology and therefore are opposed to British Israelism. There are few Jews who support British Israelism. Several early Jewish sources used to support two-house theology, which is a key tenet of British Israelism. However, these sources do not state where the lost tribes are located, nor they were really lost, and it goes on. And mentions Brit-Am. Brit-Am has compiled many of these rabbinic sources, including the testimony of Nahmanides, who first lost tribes in France and Northern Europe. That's what it says. It's not exact, but it's close enough. Then they quote other peoples, and they mainly quote people who are Jews who converted to Judaism, who had a British Israel point of view. As we point out in an article on this matter, this doesn't really matter. Jews are no different from other people. A Jew who becomes a Christian is a Christian. A Jew has not learned Jewish sources, doesn't know much about Judaism, doesn't know about Jewish sources, is not quoting Jewish sources. There's nothing really necessarily specifically Jewish about what he says. So he might believe that lost ten tribes are amongst Western peoples, or in England, amongst the British, or amongst the Anglo-Saxons, amongst the other related nations. And it's interesting if he so says, if he so believes, and he's actually saying something that's correct, basically. But if he doesn't quote Jewish sources, doesn't know Jewish sources, so he's not doing it from a rabbinical point of view, there's no real significance to what he's saying. But we have merited to be able to show that rabbinical sources support this approach, support this conclusion. And we're the only ones who have managed to do so. And concerning Orthodox Jews in general, so their attitude is not so much, they're not so interested in lost tribes. The Orthodox Jews, on the whole, what interests them is practical applications of the law. How you should keep the Shabbat, how you should behave on a day-to-day basis, how you should pray, how you should act towards your neighbor, how you should do this and that in such and such a situation. That is what concerns Orthodox Jews, how they should carry on their lives. Things like the lost ten tribes, what will happen in the end times, these are all very nice, but they're more theoretical. This is, and also there are things that to be treated with with suspicion, with wariness, and you can't really blame them. I've been here for a long time in Israel, and nearly every year, or every second year, someone starts a rumour that a big rabbi quoted such and such a passage in a certain book or a certain source, indicating that this year is going to be the year of redemption, or this year the Messiah is going to come. And at the end of the year, it doesn't happen. Just someone comes up, it wasn't last year, it was this year. And so if you follow after every little claim or opinion of this nature, you're going to get terribly confused and not do any good to yourself or to anyone else. So people are very concerning about the lost in tribes and things like that. But nevertheless, there are opinions, there are Jewish opinions concerning lost in tribes. And there are different opinions. In Judaism you have different opinions, because Judaism has existed for thousands of years, and Judaism has been put together by rabbis, all each of them know the sources and argue with each other, debate matters with each other, and all bring their different points of view, and somehow or other a consensus or one or other of the opinions prevails. But this is the way things are worked out. Things are worked out, and it works. And the truth generally is reached in this way. Concerning what should be done on a day-to-day basis, concerning general opinions, a different matter. But on the whole, Rabbinical opinion says the lost in tribes are lost, and they will return. In the end times they will return. And this is what the Bible also says. There's a minority opinion. This was an opinion by Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is quoted in the Mishnah in Sanhedrin, Masechet Sanhedrin. He's quoted as saying the lost in tribes are not to return. Now, none of the peers of Rabbi Akiva agreed with him. No one agreed with Rabbi Akiva, and the Rabbi Akiva's opinion on this matter is not accepted. But it's quoted. That is the way the Talmud also quotes minority opinion for the sake of for the sake of perspective. So his opinion is quoted, but it's not accepted by anyone. And even this opinion of his has been interpreted by Rashi as not applying to lost in tribes in the future. According to Rashi, Rabbi Akiva also believes the lost in tribes will return in the future, but he was talking about the lost in tribes in his time. He was saying they will not return. So we may take it the lost in tribes are lost and they will return, according to Rabbinical opinion. There's another minority opinion, that is the Natsir, which says the lost in tribes actually have returned and they are to be found amongst different Jewish communities. So this opinion also exists, but it is not one that is accepted by the majority of those who relate to the subject, as far as I understand. This is what Orthodox Jews deal with. This is how they relate to the subject. Every now and again, newspaper articles are published saying that the lost in tribes have been found, and they've been in Burma or in Afghanistan, and all kinds of far-fetched stories are told about Jewish customs that are kept and traditions that they had, and these stories are sensationalized. Often the facts are wrong, or exaggerated, or misapplied, or misinterpreted. But this is what the popular readership apparently wants, and this is what sells newspapers, and so this is what newspapers gives its attention to. Things might change in the future. We too may merit to receive the exposure that we need and that we deserve, and that not so much that we deserve, but the subject at least the subject itself may be presented in a better way and receive more publicity in the future. The moment has not done so. Possibly because there are in the USA and also in other areas elements who are anti-Jewish, who also believe in the lost in tribes, and they have given a bad name to belief of the lost in tribes being amongst Western peoples in general. This too has to be acknowledged and realized and taken into consideration, this reality that the idea that lost in tribes being amongst Western peoples has been adopted and misinterpreted by groups that are anti-Jewish, who give a bad name to the idea, and anyone who comes along and saying that lost in tribes are today amongst Western peoples may be suspected at the first of also being a member or being in sympathy with these anti-Jewish elements. Even though these anti-Jewish elements are a minority, they're only a small group, so relatively only a small proportion of those who non-Jews who believe the lost in tribes are amongst Western peoples, but they exist and they also have received publicity, and they give us all a bad name, and we should realise this. The article quotes Maimonides as saying that that he believes the lost in tribes to be in various parts of Europe. Now, and the source they give is British Israel Identity Foundation Truths, because and that's I think that is the only place where you'll find it, because it doesn't seem to be in the printed editions of Maimonides. Maimonides may not have written anything of the type. He may not have said anything like that. Maybe a forgery, a misquote, a misunderstanding, or it may have been a real opinion of his that somehow or other was omitted by rewritings of Maimonides sources. I don't know. It's not there at present, and it cannot be verified, and it seems wholly suspect. So we should know. Maimonides is not a quote to be, not a source to be quoted on the subject. Nachmanides, on the other hand, is. Nachmanides does seem to say the lost in tribes are in the far north of Europe, and the region of France, or to the north of it. Nevertheless, on the whole, we can say that our organisation, Brit-Am Hebrew Nations, is the only Jewish authority on the 10 tribes subject at present. We are the only ones. We are the ones who can present the sources, can show how the different sources relate to each other, show where the different sources link up, and prove that they are all pointing in one direction concerning the lost 10 tribes being amongst Western peoples. And we're not saying that it is impossible for other people to do it, because anyone can do what we have done if they go in our footsteps. But the way we have done it up until now is the way it needs to be done. Because there is no other way. There is no group of Jewish authorities, of Jewish rabbis who say the lost 10 tribes are in the West. There are one or two opinions, and the major opinions, and there are subsidiary opinions and different supportive evidence that when we take it all in as one group, as one whole, we get the right picture. But that is what we have to do. We have Jewish sources as explained by us, as explained in our writings on our website, may be divided into three. We have direct evidence, commentaries such as Nachmanides and Rashi on the book of Obadiah, a biblical book of Obadiah that say lost in tribes in France and the West, and these may be understood to especially equate certain Western nations with Israelites, but even that is not 100% certain, as we shall show. Indirect evidence. The commentaries that say that 10 tribes were in certain areas, or that had particular characteristics that historically enable us to identify the ancestors of Western peoples as being lost in tribes. And we have written about this. We have used this in our books and in the articles on historical matters concerning lost in tribes of Israel. And the third Jewish source that we use are rabbinical commentaries on biblical passages that confirm our interpretation of verses in the Hebrew Bible as applying to the lost 10 tribes. For instance, we come across a certain verse talking about Jewish exiles in the end times that we believe it is applying to lost 10 tribes. It is pertinent to lost 10 tribes. It helps us identify the lost 10 tribes. And then we may find a rabbinical source that agrees with us, or has said it before us, with whom we agree, as if to say that this verse is indeed talking about the lost 10 tribes. So that strengthens our understanding of the Bible, and it strengthens the case that we promote, and it helps us promote the truth. So these are the three different sources of rabbinical evidence concerning lost in tribes being in the West. We have direct evidence, we have indirect evidence, and we have a corroboration of biblical verse applications. And now the the second two, the indirect evidence and the corroboration of biblical verse applications, are subjective. They are what is done after you have already approached the subject and presented the case. Then you can bring these the indirect evidence showing that the rabbis believe the lost in tribes were there, where also historical sources indicate the people in question, the ancestors of the people in the West were also in those regions, that they had certain characteristics, and we can show that people in the West have these same characteristics in a historical sense. And then we can also show biblical verses that seem to relate to this and prove it and strengthen it. And then we have biblical, rabbinical commentaries which confirm our application of the same verses. But it all is dependent upon how we apply these sources. All is dependent apart from the direct evidence. So let's look at the direct evidence. So what direct evidence is there? There's almost nothing. The only thing we have is a commentary or commentaries on the Book of Abijah. Book of Abijah, verse 20. In the English translation, it says in verse 1, verse 20, it says, in the captivity of the host of the children of Israel shall possess that of the Canaanites, even unto Zarephath, in the captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Sepharad, shall possess the cities of the south. And Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo ben Yitzhak, who lived in northern France, and about in the 11th century, in the 1000s, lived in the area of Champagne. He was one of the greatest rabbinical commentaries who ever existed, and he said this is referring to the first exile of the children of Israel, referring to the 10 tribes, who were exiled from the 10 tribes to the land of the Canaanites unto Zarephath. This is the land called France, among the common people. That is what Rashi says. In other words, Rashi is saying the lost 10 tribes were exiled to France, according to the simple meaning. And we understand Rashi to be referring to the non-Israelite elements, to the non-Jewish. We understand Rashi to be referring to the non-Jewish peoples, some of whom were in France, and to the areas to the north of France, and also across the sea in the British Isles. There are those Jewish sources, they are a minority, but they exist, to say that Rashi is referring to the Jews of France, of that area of France and later of Germany, that they are the ones who descend from those tribes of Israel, that they returned and joined the Jewish people, and they are those Jews in that region. Nevertheless, the simple meaning of Rashi is that the 10 tribes were to be found amongst the non-Jewish peoples of that area. And we took other authorities, other commentators, such as Nahmanides, who says the same thing. He says the lost 10 tribes in the far north, in the area of Zarephath, which also points in the same direction of Western Europe. Then we took the commentary of Abarbanel, who says that by Zarephath, the commentators included England, or intended England as well, that England was, from that point of view, part of Zarephath. We have other commentators who such as the Radak and Ibn Ezra, and taking all these commentators and others together, we get a composite picture. A composite picture says in this first exile of the 10 tribes of Israel, who dwelt from Germany, from the borders of Germany and Holland, even unto France, including France, and England, or the island of England, that is all of Britain. They are where the lost 10 tribes are. That's what it may be understood to be saying, or that all of the commentators together are indicating. But to do this, we have to take the different commentators, compare them, collate them, analyze them, and explain them. And this is what we have done, and it is convincing, it is acceptable. It is acceptable both to those who have no acquaintanceship with the sources, with the Hebrew, with this field of study, and those who are experts in it can also accept it. It would also be acceptable to them. And this is what we have done, and this is what we promote. But it needs application of effort and editing, and it is not something that is there at first sight. It is there once, and it is obvious once the work has been done. And our books, once you open up our books and see how it has been done, then you accept it. But there is no group or school of sources that you may go to and say that they are in that direction. Or if you do hold that opinion, you have to refer to how Brit-Am understands these sources in order to do so. In other words, you get back to Brit-Am. And Brit-Am therefore has a role to play, and Brit-Am is in effect, as far as the public is concerned, especially the non-Jewish public, but also the Jewish public, Brit-Am is the address for Jewish sources concerning lost in tribes of Israel. As well, and Brit-Am also has much to say concerning other fields, in secular sources, secular fields. Certain fields we have opened up new avenues of exploration, new possibilities, and we have achieved something. We have done something. Things have been done, and they are in our books and in our publications and on our website. And therefore, not only are we saying that we should be appreciated and supported when possible, but also those who want to study the subject should know that they should come through us in order to do so. And once they have done that, they can form their own opinion. No one is, they are free to form their own opinion and make their own impressions and check others out. And we work and we do things, and things percolate down, they get out. Sometimes we are not always acknowledged as the source, or sometimes we are not. It's not certain if we are the source, or if someone else is, or from some other avenue the same information reached the audience. Recently, I met up with a Christian minister, and we met up with a Christian minister. We spoke to him. He was telling us different ideas that he had. He was quite interesting personality. He was throwing out different ideas, and so one of the things he said concerning lost in tribes, he referred to the two shoulder pieces used by the high priest in the temple service. Like they had shoulder pieces, kind of clasps, with a breastplate. The breastplate was 12 stones. On each stone was engraved the name of a tribe. And this breastplate was attached by gold chains to the shoulders, two shoulder pieces, clasps. I assume they worked as clasps. On these clasps or shoulder pieces, there was two stones, two Shohem stones. In English, it's translated as onyx. Each of these clasps of the shoulder pieces had one of these stones, and on the stones were engraved the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. And the stones, this precious stone was known as the Shohem stone, translated as onyx. The Shohem stone is the same stone as that used in the breastplate for the tribe of Joseph. So this minister said this shows an indication that Joseph was to carry all of the other tribes. And that's what he said. He's presented this idea to us as an idea of his own. And actually, we had already commentated on this. We had already found, not in a commentary of Rabbi Yehuda Leib Alter, the Smartamet, who lived in 1847-1905 in Poland, and a great rabbi, a great Hasidic rabbi. And he said that concerning the Shohem stone on the shoulder plate, being that of Joseph, he said the main point concerns Joseph, and that is why on the ephod, the shoulder piece of the high priest, there was only the Shohem, which is the stone of Joseph. By means of the stone of Joseph, all the 12 stones are united at their roots. In other words, he was saying exactly the same thing in a slightly different formulation. So perhaps this Christian minister reached this idea, this revelation on his own, or perhaps he had read it on our website and forgotten that he had read it by us, or someone else had read it and given it to him and passed the idea over to him in some way or other. It doesn't really matter. The concepts trickle down. They get down and our work bears fruit. And rabbinical sources can help strengthen and confirm biblical proof. Now the fact that this Christian minister was going around saying it in his name is all very nice, and perhaps he really did believe that he originated it, and maybe in a way he did. But we see that the same idea had been given over more than 100 years ago by a rabbi, a famous and important rabbi. And if it would be known that the rabbi had given over this same idea in a slightly more sophisticated form, it would be more acceptable. It would be more acceptable not only to the Jews but also to the non-Jews, and it would do something to unite Judah and Joseph. So this is also why rabbinical sources and acknowledging rabbinical sources and being aware of rabbinical sources can be important. Another thing of incident of somehow other connected to this issue is another opinion, another observation of the Sfat Emet of this same rabbi. The Sfat Emet, he said concerning Genesis 44:18, when Judah said to Joseph, "O my Lord, let my servant, I pray thee, speak with you." What happened was that Joseph had been taken down into Egypt, and he was sold as a slave, and he served in Egypt in that capacity, and eventually became the ruler of the country. And he acted and looked like an Egyptian, and sometime later his brothers came down to buy grain, and they did not recognize Joseph, but he recognized them. So he played around with them and he manipulated them, and in the end he threatened to hold back Benjamin, who was actually his younger brother. They were the same mother, his full brother, to hold back Benjamin in captivity as punishment for the false charge of having stolen his chalices, his cup from him. And then Judah approaches Joseph and he says, "My Lord, pray you." And then he begins to remonstrate with Joseph and to beg Joseph not to hold Benjamin back in captivity. And then Joseph breaks down and he's reconciled to his brothers, and then they eventually all go back and they tell their father that Joseph still lives. And then their father Jacob comes down into Egypt, and they settle in Egypt, and they are reconciled to Joseph, their brother. And this whole scenario is representative of the future reunification of the 10 tribes represented by Joseph and of Judah. So we see in this semi-confrontation, as if to say, that brought about the acknowledgement of Joseph to his brothers, that Judah approached Joseph and he said, "My Lord, let me speak unto you." And he uses the expression in Hebrew, "Be Adoni," which is translated as "please my Lord." Be Adoni. But in Hebrew words have double meanings, or have manifold meanings. So be also means in me, like listen unto me. Be, he uses be Adoni, and Lord, my Lord, is Adoni. He says be Adoni. So the Sfat Emet says that consciously or unconsciously, Joseph was telling Judah was telling Joseph that his lordship, the power of his rulership, the power of his being able to fulfill his mission, was also dependent upon me. Judah, by fulfilling his role, was enabling Joseph to fulfill his. So the two different sections of the Hebraic nation, Judah and Joseph, have the different tasks to play, different roles to play, and the fulfillment of one enables or helps, assists the fulfillment of the other. There are two halves that are complementing each other assisting each other. They should recognize the differences between one and the other, and the different roles that the two have to play, the separate roles and parts that the two have to play, even though eventually they will reunite, as we are told in Ezekiel 37, the two sticks of Joseph and the stick of Judah will reunite and become one, and they will be ruled by the Messiah, descendant of David. Thank you very much. This is Yair Davidiy. I've been speaking to you on behalf of Brit-Am Hebrew nations, and I've been speaking to you from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. Thank you.